Okay, so thank you for joining the class and sorry for the inconvenience. Let's just start the class. Okay, so at this chapter, we are going to learn about uh, what a firm is and describe the economic problems that all firms face, distinguish between technological efficiency and economic efficiency, define and explain the principal agent problem, describe how different types of business organizations cope with this problem. Okay. So after studying this chapter, we'll also describe and distinguish between different types of markets in which firms operate and explain why markets coordinate some economic activities and firms coordinate others. Okay, so Tim Berners-Lee's idea, the World Wide Web, has provided a platform for creation of thousands of profitable businesses from tiny owner-operated firms to giant multinationals. So this chapter explains the role of the firms and the problems that all firms face. So from like tiny little companies, now companies can go international and worldwide, and it just takes a web page and a website for them to be accessible from every single house in every single country, in every single city. People can just log into your website from different cities, different parts of the world, and order your products. So now the whole concept and idea of internationalism has changed and has been very much changed into a easier and more accessible business. So the firm and its economic problem. A firm is an institution that hires factors of production and organizes them to produce and sell goods and services. So firms will goods and services, and the firm's goal would be maximizing the profit. So each firm will have a goal, which is to maximize their profit and the benefits that they get. So if the firms fail to maximize its profit, it's either eliminated or bought out by other firms seeking to maximize profit. So it's very simple that the companies, for sure, they have the goal of maximizing their profit, and that's why they do their business and sell their goods and services. So the major goal is to maximize the profit they get from their businesses. And in order to do that, companies, they would love to expand their businesses and expand their access and accessibility throughout the world, so that their chances to do business will increase. So the fact that we just talked about, which is the web, works in advantage of maximizing the profit. Okay. So the firm and its economic problem, measuring a firm's profit. Accountants measure a firm's profit using rules laid down by Internal Revenue Service and Financial Accounting Standard Boards. Their goal is to report profit so that the firm pays the correct amount of tax and is open and honest about its financial situation with the banks and other lenders. And economists measure profit based on opportunity cost and measure of cost. We talked about opportunity cost and the fact that whenever we get an opportunity, we lose an opportunity somewhere else, and that's the cost that we pay to use that opportunity. So a firm's decision response to opportunity cost and economic cost is the firm's decision, and the firm's opportunity cost of producing a good is the best foregone alternative use of its factors of production, usually measured in dollars. So opportunity cost includes either explicit costs or implicit costs. So what do we mean by explicit costs? Explicit costs are paid directly in money, whereas implicit costs are incurred when a firm uses its own capital or its owner's time for which it does not make any direct money payment. So the firm can rent capital and pay an explicit rental cost reflecting the opportunity cost of using the capital. So you could incur direct, explicit, and implicit costs at the same time as this case. So you can rent capital and pay an explicit rental cost, and reflecting the opportunity cost of using capital. So the firm can also buy capital and incur an implicit opportunity cost of using its own capital, called the implicit rental rate of capital. So when you buy capital and incur an implicit opportunity cost, you use your own capital, and it's called implicit rental rate of capital. So as you can see here, we have implicit costs when they are incurred indirectly, and explicit cost, which is the direct cost to the company. And you could either rent a capital and you would pay explicit rental costs when you rent a capital. And so at the same time, when you're incurring implicit costs, you could incur explicit costs, or at the same time that you would earn money, you might incur implicit, let's say, opportunity costs. Okay. So the firm and its economic problem. Again, the implicit rental rate of the capital is made up of economic depreciation and interest foregone. So what is the economic depreciation? Economic depreciation is the change in the market value of a capital over a given period. So over a given period, if your economic value goes down, then it's a change in the market value. So interest foregone is the return on the funds used to acquire the capital. So these are examples of economic depreciation. Okay. So the cost of owner's resources is his or her entrepreneurial ability and labor expended in running the business. So the opportunity cost of the owner's entrepreneur ability is the average return from his contribution that can be expected from running another firm. So as you can see, when you are running one firm, you are incurring an opportunity of cost of not running another firm. So the return is called normal profit. So when you're incurring the entrepreneurial ability is the average return from his contribution that can be expected from running another. So, and the return that you get from it is called normal profit. So the opportunity cost of the owner's labor spent running the business is wage income foregone by not working in the next business alternative jobs. Okay. So are we good so far? Any questions or comments? Okay. I have a general comment regarding your concept. Yes, please, go ahead.
Good evening. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, please, Mr. Elias. Go ahead.
Well, yes. Thank you very much for giving me the chance. I just have a very general comment because our business economics subject is a very interesting
I can't hear you quite well. It's like your voice is on and off. Mr. Elias, we can't hear you clearly. Do you want to write down your comment or try to reconnect because we are not able to understand? We couldn't hear you, Mr. Riasi. If you want to try again, is that your connection or?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for giving me the chance. I had a very general comment regarding our business economics class because business economics is a very interesting subject, and it's like this same like other subjects that we have in the semester, like MIS, like leadership. All of them are very interesting for us. But according to our assessment, most of the class field assessments, besides being interesting, at the same time we also find business economics class as one of the most challenging subjects also because it's more technical. It's also more terminologies and a lot of new things for us, I would say. A lot of new information coming to us under the business economics class, to most of us or to all of us. So we were just wondering that because in this night we have two classes, one is the leadership and the other is business economics. We were just wondering because in the past we tried to have it one subject, we know it's not possible. If it's not possible to have one subject, at least if we could shift to bring the business economics first before the leadership and then the leadership second, because in Afghanistan the second class is now like 10:30 in the evening, in the night, and because most of us or all of us are working the whole day, and we somehow become a lot of tired naturally, not because of the class but because of the work that we do during the day.
Exactly.
So our absorption power becomes reduced for the second class naturally, whatever subject it is. So because comparatively leadership is easier than the business economics class, comparatively. I'm not saying that's an easy one, but comparatively leadership is easier. So we were just wondering if we could shift the leadership after business economics, and we have the business economics first.
Okay, sure, absolutely. Your voice is caught again.
That will be a lot of help to us. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. It's totally fine with me. Now I can hear you again now. Okay, Mr. Ghiassi, I got your comment. Absolutely, it's totally fine with me. We can start the economics first and the leadership class afterwards. It's totally fine with me. I just let the admin know, and we will probably be able to shift them. Like first economics
Yes.
and then the leadership.
Would be a great help. Thank you very much.
Sure,
Thank
my
you very
pleasure. Absolutely.
Much. Thanks a lot. Yes, okay. Thank you.
Sure. We absolutely can do that. Okay. But do you have any questions regarding what we talked about right now, like the concepts that we just went through? Okay. So the firm and its economic problem. So economic profit is a firm's total revenue minus its opportunity cost of production. So economic profit, when we say economic profit, what we mean is total revenue minus the opportunity cost of production. So a firm's opportunity cost of production is the sum of the explicit cost and implicit costs. So normal profit is part of the firm's opportunity cost. So economic profit is over and above normal profit. So table 9 on page 193 of the book basically summarizes the economic accounting concepts. So it's pretty simple that when we say economic profit, we mean the total revenue minus opportunity cost, and firm's opportunity cost of production is the sum of explicit and implicit costs. So those that we directly incur and those we indirectly incur are both part of our costs. So economic accounting summary: to maximize profit, a firm must make 5 basic decisions. So there are 5 basic decisions need to be made to maximize the profit. So first, what goods and services to produce and in what quantities. So first of all, as a firm, you need to decide what goods and services you're going to produce and what quantities. And then how to produce it, the production technology that we use. So the first one was what goods and services we produce, in what quantities, and how we produce them, basically dealing with the technology that we use to produce them, and then how to organize and compensate its managers and workers. So when we have a company, we have to compensate and pay our workers and managers. So how we decide to do that, and how to market and price its products. So how do we market and advertise our products, and also put certain prices and pricing strategies, and what to produce itself and what to buy from others. So as we discussed in the business strategy class, if you remember, we said that firms try to create and make what they make, like their products and services, but sometimes they outsource, they buy certain stuff from other companies. So that is also a decision they need to make. These are all 5 economic decisions for a company to maximize their profit. So the firm's constraints. We talked about some limitations that the firms have. 5 basic decisions of a firm are limited by the constraints it faces, and there are 3 constraints that firms face. First of all, it's their technology. Okay, I see Mr. Riasi's hand. Mr. Riasi, do you have a question? Oh, no? Okay. Sir, no problem. So first of all is the technology. So each company uses a certain technology, and but there are limitations because technology is mostly very expensive, and there are certain technologies that are not accessible to everyone. So this is a big constraint to most of the firms. Then information also, because like the database and information is also very expensive. We are living in an information age, and information is one of the key keys to success in each business. So information is really important for a business. And finally, there is the market. So what market are we talking about, and where we want to market ourselves, and all that. So these are like the limitation of the market. So market has certain limitations around the company itself. So that is also one constraint that the firm is facing. So to dig deeper into technology constraint, technology is any method of producing a good or service. So technology advances over time, as you know. So let's say you spend a lot of money, you buy certain technology for your business, but the fact is, over a year, like the whole technology might have changed, and all your expenses might have been useless now because you need to buy a totally brand new technology, which is totally different from the previous one. Then you got to train your workers and employees to use the new technology. So using the available technology, the firm can produce more only if it hires more resources, which will increase its cost and limit the profit of additional output. So, so as you can see, it is really limited, and it has its own problems. Then information constraints. So a firm never possesses complete information about either the present or the future. So if it is constrained by limited information about quality and effort of its workforce, current and future buying plans of customers, and plans of its competitors. So the cost of coping with limited information limits profit. So as you can see, limitation, even though it's like we have a lot of information about us, but we still don't have full access to all the information that we need. So that is also another concern, and that actually shows how the information that shows how the current buying or future plans of the customers, like the current would be available. We can see how currently buyers and customers are buying products, but we might not have any idea about future plans, or we might not know any information about the quality and effort of our workforce. So all these information are limited, and the information that we have, which is still a very important information, is very limited, and what we really need to know is much more than what we do mostly. So that also is part of the problem of our limitations on information. And finally, the market constraints. What a firm can sell and the price it can obtain are constrained by its consumers, like the willingness to pay and by the price and marketing efforts of the other firms. So the resources that a firm can buy and prices it must pay for them are limited by the willingness of people to work for and also invest in the firm. So as you know, the capital that we have in our firm is very limited. So not every customer is going to invest in our firm, and it will give us a very limited capital. So that limited capital forces us to invest only in certain markets. So the expenditures a firm incurs to overcome these market constraints will limit the profit the firm can make, because we can only make so much investment, and the rest of the market that we don't make any investment for, we don't get any profit out of it. So that is part of our limitations. So now let's talk about technological efficiency. What do we mean by technological efficiency? It occurs when a firm produces a given level of output by using the least amount of inputs. So we want to be efficient regarding technology. So we only will be efficient only when a firm produces a given level of output by using the least amount of inputs. And like the table in your book shows also 4 ways of making a TV set, like one of which is technology inefficient and one of which is technology efficient. So there may be different combinations of inputs to use for producing a given level of output. So you might have different levels or combinations of inputs, and that will give you for sure different combinations of output. But only one of them is the efficient one. If it's impossible to maintain output by decreasing any of the inputs, holding all other inputs constant, then production is technology efficient. So we would only be technology efficient if it's impossible to maintain output by decreasing any one of inputs and holding all other inputs constant. So the best situation where we are getting the highest amount of output out of the input we put in is called technology efficiency. Okay, so now what is economic efficiency? Economic efficiency occurs when the firm produces a given level of output at least cost. So this is mostly regarding cost, and you can see also in your book how economically efficient method depends on relative cost of capital and labor. So the difference between technological and economic efficiency is that technological efficiency is concerned with the quantity of inputs used in production for a given level of output, whereas economic efficiency is concerned with the cost of the inputs used. So as you can see, there is a difference between technological efficiency and economic efficiency. Technological efficiency is more about quantity, like the quantity of input you put for a given level of output. So the input and output, there would be a link. But for economic efficiency is the cost of the input used. And I see here that Mr. Navabi is asking about ebook. You can absolutely find a book online. It's called, you already know that it's Foundations of Economics, and it's by Pearson Publications. So you can absolutely find it on Amazon or anywhere. So it's a very common book. You can find it probably in bookshops, and it's accessible everywhere. Okay. Oh, you do have it in your syllabus that I gave you the first session, though. But I just write it down again. Foundations of Economics. And it is by Parkin and Pearson publication. Okay. Sure, no problem. Then we go to the next slide. So, an economically efficient production process also is technologically efficient. So, it's safe to say when when a process is economically efficient, it is also technologically efficient. But a technologically efficient process may not be necessarily economically efficient, because for technological efficiency, all we need is input and output. So there might be some cost difference. But for economic efficient, when you are getting maximizing your profit, so you absolutely are technologically efficient also. So changes in the input price influence the value of the input, but not technological process for using them in production. So if there are changes in the input prices, It will change the value of the inputs, but it will not change the economic process for using them in production. So that is also something you need to know. So a firm organizes production by combining and coordinating productive resources using a mixture of two systems, command systems and incentive systems. So there are two systems that firms basically use for their production and organizing their production. So what is command system? Command system uses a managerial hierarchy. So where you have the highest level of management, it goes all the way down. So the commands pass downward through the hierarchy, and information or feedback passes upward. So let's say the highest level of management passes down the commands, but the feedback or the information comes from the very bottom, so upward. So the command goes downward, but the feedback goes upward. These systems are relatively rigid and can have many layers of specialized management. Okay. So what is incentive systems, though? It uses market-like mechanisms to induce workers to perform in ways that maximize the firm's profit. So the mechanism that the incentive system uses is like a market. So it's very similar to market, and the whole reason is to encourage the workers to perform in many ways, or in ways that maximizes the firm's profit. So in that incentive system, there are not necessarily any hierarchy. They're not necessarily like upward or downward movement. It's like based on the incentive, and the workers will work different roles just to maximize the firm's profit. So mixing the systems. Most of firms use a mixture of command and incentive systems to maximize their profit. So none of them are ideal. You cannot say command system is the best and every firm has to take the command system, and neither you can say it's only the incentive system which is the best. So most of the firms use a mixture of both. So they use commands when it's easy to monitor performance, or when a small deviation from the ideal performance is very costly. And they use incentive whenever monitoring performance is impossible or too costly to be worth doing. So there are times that companies can monitor the performance of their employees, and so a small deviation from that will cost a lot of money to the company, so they decide to do the command system. But there are times that it's impossible to monitor, so they just stick to incentive system. What is the principal-agent problem? The principal-agent problem is the problem of devising compensation rules that induces an agent to act in the best interest of a principal. So there are rules, like the devising rules, the devising compensation rules, which induces an agent to act in the best interest of a principal. That is called a principal-agent problem. For example, the stockholders of a firm are the principals, and the managers of the firms are their agents. So it's good to know that, or it's important to know that in any firm, there are different roles. We have the principals and we have the agents. So stockholders of the firms are called principals, and the managers are called the agents. So the principal-agent problem is to set up those rules to induce and encourage the agents to act in the best interest of the principals, which are the stockholders. So not all the time agents would be acting in the best interest of the principals. So that is a problem. That's what makes big companies that go down, that they sort of take the money, like a lot of agents, they take the shareholders' money, and it's just because of their interest, and not always is the best interest of the principals or the stakeholders that they consider. Many times they just consider their own interest, and that's the root of a lot of problems. So coping with principal agent problem, what can we do? 3 ways of coping with principal agent problems are ownership, incentive pay, and long-term contract. So by these 3 ways, we try to reduce the principal agent problem to the least possible. So ownership often offered to managers gives the managers an incentive to maximize the firm profits, which is a goal of the owners. So sometimes when the managers or agents are the owners or partially are the owners, that is an encouragement to them to maximize the firm profit because they own it, so whatever is added to the companies in a way is added to their own wealth. So that's how we sort of try, by giving them ownership, we try to encourage them. Then incentive pay links managers or workers pay to the firm's performance and helps align the managers' and workers' interests with those of the owners or the principals. So by incentive pay, they get an extra pay or a bonus pay when they are working along or to the best interest of the principals, which makes the company do better, so they get some bonuses also. And long-term contracts can tie managers or workers for long-term reward to the long-term performance of the firm. So this arrangement encourages the agents to work in the best long-term interests of the firm owners, which are the principals. So those are like those bonuses that would be promised to the managers who are the agents in the long run. Let's say after 5-10 years, they promise the managers to get this much bonus. So that sort of sticks them and ties them to the company, and they find it more to their advantage to stay and help make the company do better and get those bonuses. That's how they improve their performance also. Then types of business organization. There are 3 types of business organization: proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. So proprietorship is, let's discuss them separately, is a firm with a single owner who has unlimited liability or legal responsibility for all debts incurred by the firm, up to an amount equal to the entire wealth of the owner. So when we have proprietorship, it's when there's only a sole owner. He or she would be responsible for all the debts of the company, legal debts, and it could be even the whole, the entire wealth of the owner. So if they owe money and the company itself is not enough, they take their own wealth and whatever they have. Let's say if they have a house or whatever, if they owe, they can go and get the house. So the proprietorship also makes management decisions and receives the firm's profit. And profits are taxed the same as the owner's other income. So they are like considered as another source of income. Then partnership. When the firm has 2 or more owners who have unlimited liability, so partners must agree on a management structure and how to divide up the profits. Profits from partnerships are taxed as a personal income of the owners. So this is also like unlimited liability, the same with the proprietorship. But the only thing is there are more than one owner in this case. So, but each of them have unlimited liability. And finally, a corporation is owned by 1 or more stockholders with limited liability, which means the owners have legal liability only for the initial value of their investment, and the personal wealth of the stockholders is not at risk if the firm goes bankrupt. So when the firm goes bankrupt, they don't go after their houses or all those personal wealth. They just are liable to the amount of their initial value, which is within the corporation. So the profit of corporation is taxed twice, once as the corporate tax on firm profits, and then again as income tax paid by stockholders receiving their after-tax profits distributed as dividends. So when they are taxed, it's actually taxed twice. Once is when it's on the profit of the company, and then again when they are paid back, when they are receiving after-tax profits, it will be so taxed, like dividends. So pros and cons of different types of firms. Each type of business organization has advantages and disadvantages. So in the book you can see the list of all those pros and cons. So proprietorships are easy to set up. So managerial decision making is very simple. Profits are taxed only once, but bad decisions made by the managers are not subject to review. So when you have only one owner, if there is a bad decision they make, then there's nobody else to review that. And the owner's entire wealth is at stake, and the firm dies with the owner, and finally the cost of capital and labor can be high. So all these are some of the pros and cons of the sole proprietorship. Partnerships are easy to set up and then employ diversified decision making. So they're also easy to set up, and plus the fact that they're diversified decision making levels. So if there's one who makes a bad decision, others would be reviewing it, and can survive the death of a withdrawal of a partner. So in the first time, like in the sole proprietorship, if the owner withdraws or dies, then the business dies. But in this case, it will survive, even though when the partner is gone. So profits are taxed only once. This is still the same. And then, but partnerships make attaining a consensus about managerial decisions difficult. So sometimes to get a solid unanimous agreement on something is difficult, because one owner might decide something and the other might say something else. So for them to agree, it's not always easy. And then the cost of capital can be high, and the withdrawal of a partner might create a capital shortage. So, but then again, when one owner is withdrawing his wealth or passes away, that capital would be lost in their company. Okay, and finally, a corporation. For corporation, it offers a perpetual or everlasting life, limited liability for its owners. These are all benefits. Large scale and low cost capital that is readily available. So it's like hugely available, these costs, and the capital is very low cost. Professional management, you have a whole different bunch of managers, and lower costs from long-term labor contracts. So it's the cost is actually lower because of the long-term labor contract. While the corporation's management structure may lead to a slower and expensive decision-making. So because you have much more complexity and many more managers, so for them to get to a decision, it would be more costly, and it's probably slower. So, and the profit is taxed twice, as we mentioned. So these are some of the cons of that. The relative importance of different types of firms. So there are a greater number of proprietorships than any other form of business, but corporations account for the majority of revenue received by businesses. So it's safe to say that majority of businesses are proprietorships, but the major revenue comes from corporations, because they're bigger investments, much bigger number of stakeholders, so that's why they get more revenue. So in this figure, as you can see, the frequency of each type of business as you look into that, and it shows the dominant type of businesses for various industries. So as you can see, the green part is the corporations, the red portion is partnerships, and the orange part is proprietorships. So as you can see, number of firms proprietorships has about 70%, and then only 10% of partnerships and probably 20% of corporations. Well, that, as you can see, when it comes to the magnitude of revenue at the bottom, you see that majority of the revenue comes from the green, which is the corporations. So the proprietorships, as you can see, it's not much. I mean, the highest it has is for agriculture, forestry, and fishing. But as it comes to other products, particularly manufacturing, you see that corporations are those who make the major money. So, and proprietorships, they make a bit more than the proprietorships in most of the cases. But the major money comes from corporations. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Markets and competitive environments. Economics identify 4 market types: perfect competition, monopolistic competition, and oligopoly and monopoly. So in perfect competition, we can go ahead and discuss them separately. In perfect competition, the market structure has many firms, each sells an identical product, and many buyers, no restrictions on entry for new firms to the industry, and finally both firms and buyers are well informed of the prices and products of all firms in the industry. So in a perfect competition, there are many firms, many buyers, many sellers. There's no restrictions to entry, and firms and buyers are well informed about the prices and products in the industry. So that is the perfect competition, where the competition is perfect. Monopolistic competition is where there are many firms. Each firm produces similar but slightly different products, called product differentiation. And each firm possesses an element of market power, no restrictions on entry to new firms to the industry. So this is monopolistic competition. And then oligopoly is a market structure where there is a small number of firms, and the firms might produce almost identical products, and there are barriers to entry that limit entry into the market. So when it comes to monopoly, one firm produces the entire output of the industry. So there are no close substitutes for the product, and there are barriers to entry that protect the firm from competition by entering the firm. So there is only one, like Microsoft was a monopoly for a long time. So it was the only one producing all the softwares, and no close substitutes for any other operating system. And there were barriers to entry. Well, whichever company would come in, Microsoft would either buy it out or just cause so much trouble for them so that they go out of business. I mean, now it's not like that anymore, but it used to be like that. Then measures of concentration. 2 measures of market concentration in common use are the 4-firm concentration ratio and the Herfindahl-Hirschman index. So as you can see, the 4-firm concentration ratio is a percentage of the total industry sales accounted for by the 4 largest firms in the industry. So the 4-firm concentration, so the total industry sales accounted for by the 4 largest firms in the industry. And the HHI index is the sum of the squared market shares of 50 largest firms in the industry. So the larger the measure of the market concentration, the less competition that exists in the industry. So if those four are so big that you have such a high percentage, so that shows that the competition is not perfect and there are not many competitors in the market. So concentration measures for U.S. economy. The U.S. Justice Department used the HHI to classify markets. A market with HHI of less than 1,000 is regarded as highly competitive. A market with HHI between 1,000 and 1,800 is regarded as moderately competitive. And if it's 1,800 or more, it's uncompetitive. So this shows the 4 firm concentration ratios for industries in the United States. It also shows the HHI index. So as you can see here, so commercial printing has the lowest 4 firm concentration. As it goes higher, like chewing gum, you will have like the majority of bigger companies are you know, just few, like those 4. That's why it's like such a high 4 firm concentration. So if we have the HHI lower, that shows that it's competitive, because it shows that those 4 companies on the top are not taking the whole chunk size of the sales, the profit sales. But if as it becomes higher, then our the market is not going to be competitive anymore. So limitations of concentration measures. Concentration measures alone are not sufficient to identify the market structure of a given industry. So when we have a given industry, just concentration measures alone by themselves are not enough to identify the market structure for a given industry. So the concentration ratios are based on the national market, and for some goods, the relevant market is local, like newspapers. And for some goods, the relevant market is the world, like automobiles. Okay. The markets and the competitive environment. So concentration ratios convey no information about the extent of barriers to entry. So when we have the ratios, concentration ratios, there are no information available about the extent of barriers to entry that exist. And some industries, few firms may be currently operating in a market, but competition might be fierce, with firms regularly entering and exiting the industry. And finally, even potential entry might be enough to maintain competition. So sometimes just having the chance of other companies coming in would keep the competition going. And sometimes there are not many companies in there, but their competition is pretty high. And then next table summarizes the range of other information used in concentration ratios. As you can see, market structures in the U.S. economy. So this figure shows the distribution of market structure in the U.S. economy. The economy is mainly competitive. As you can see, the green part, the blue part is the competition, like 4 firm concentration ratios less than 60%. Oligopoly is the firm concentration ratio above 60%. Dominant firm is the market share is 50 to 90%, and monopoly is 100%. So as you can see, the major part of the U.S. economy is the competitive part, which is the competition, and we have the lesser versions of oligopoly and dominant firm and monopoly. But in different economies, of course, there are different ratios. So in some countries, monopolies are really big and competition is much smaller. It's just the private sector. But because in the U.S. economy, they have a huge private sector, so that is the reason that they have such a huge number there. Okay. And then market coordination. So markets and firms both coordinate production. Chapter 3 explains how demand and supply coordinate the plans of buyers and sellers. Outsourcing is buying parts or products from other firms, which is an example of market coordination of production. But firms coordinate more production than do markets. You know why? So just to review, we discussed the demand and supply, how they coordinate, and the buyers and sellers. And outsourcing is buying parts of products from other firms. But firms coordinate more production than do markets. And let's see why. Firms coordinate production when they can do so more efficiently than a market. 4 key reasons might make firms more efficient is because they have lower transaction costs, they have a higher economies of scale, and economies of scope, and economies of team production. So let's discuss them. So what is transaction cost? Which is the cost of arises from finding someone with whom we do business, reaching agreement on the price and other aspects of exchange, and ensuring that the terms of agreement are fulfilled. So every transaction that we do, it has a certain cost to it. So when there's a cost arising from finding someone with whom we do business, and we reach an agreement on the price and other aspects, there will be like a transaction cost. But economies of scale is when the cost of producing a unit of a good falls as its output raises. Okay, it's just a few more slides. We'll finish the class earlier today because not many in the class and we started the class late. Okay, let's finish these couple more slides and then we'll continue next session. So economies of scale, as we said, is the cost of producing a unit falls as we increase the output. And economies of scope is it arises when a firm can use specialized inputs to produce a range of different goods. So it means that by using the same technology, you can produce different types of products. You can produce different types of products. And because of all these, firms can engage in team production in which individuals are specialized in mutually supporting tasks. So, okay, so let's finish the class here because we started a bit late. And thank you so much for staying in the class, Mr. Navabi, and we will continue our discussion next session. And once again, sorry for the class to start quite late today. I hope you have a nice week and have a good night. Thank you so much. If you have no questions, we can finish the class. Do you have any comments or questions for me? Okay. Yes, we can absolutely review the class and discuss next section. Thank you so much. So let's finish the class here.